So it feels like a lot has happened since the last time we recorded, and by the calendar days, it's been 2 weeks for us, and it feels like more than 2 weeks worth of things have happened. Or am I? Do you think I'm? Or do you? Let me rephrase. Do you feel that more than 2 weeks worth of stuff has happened?
I have felt that way for a few years at this point. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Well,
it's not that bad, but I do agree with you that it does feel like a lot more has happened in the past 2 weeks than a
all
typical
of
2 week
June.
span.
Yeah.
Right. And part of it is, I think, just productivity in some ways. And I mean, we'll break it down. Like for me personally, I've achieved more in a 2 week stretch just because of the timing of things lining up in certain ways than I expected to, which contributes to that same feeling of, a lot having occurred. But then you combine that with seemingly every day another massive event, just in the general landscape of life and the world at large. And yeah, it's a roller coaster.
And these massive events are not, flood. They're not. It's not flood the world with chaos. These are like things are now happening. So, I'd like to start with your first bullet point, and that is another Panasonic Lumix S1. Do you say II or do you say 2?
So general nomenclature would be S1 Mark II.
Mark II. Okay.
And then like the other one that we talked about, a few weeks ago was the S1R Mark II. So the II just designates the second iteration of a camera, sort of like how Canon would do the 5D Mark, etc.
Yes. And then they did the Rebel. The Rebel also had a Mark. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Volkswagen uses at least for maybe the Golf, they have.
They have in the past for sure, yeah.
Okay. So I understand the nomenclature, but, in my head I was thinking World War II. And one of my favorite jokes is when people talk about World War II, they talk about, so what happened to World Wars 2 through 10? And I've also heard WWII, so I wasn't sure if it, I would have said 2, but I think Mark II makes it, because S1 makes.
Well, it's also easier to notice if you look at the official model number designations. So the way it's written here is the way it shows up on like the badge on the camera, but the official model number is S1M2, the number 2. And so then
now yes, I see it.
Yeah.
I got it. Okay.
But yeah, so I bought the S1R2. We had that discussion about the transition to it being my primary. And I had been looking at the S1 Mark II as well for other uses. So the easy way to not get into the weeds on tech specs and everything is just think of the S1R Mark II as a photography first hybrid camera. So 50-50 capable, fully capable, no problems, but it skews toward photography features, hence the higher megapixel sensor and some other things going there. And then the S1 Mark II would skew more toward video. Again, fully capable photography and all as a hybrid camera as well. It's just its feature set skews it more toward the video side of things. And both of them gained the feature of shooting in the airy color space. And I know we talked a little bit about that as well. So that's the real high level kind of difference between them. There are a lot of other nitpicky differences. But all that to say, I had been really weighing which one to get, which way to go, what would make the most sense. And so then I decided to do the most me thing anybody would ever do, and I just bought both. Because that gives me a Panasonic primary and secondary with a Panasonic backup in the event that one breaks. or that has to be sent in for service or whatever. And it's just kind of nice to have it all unified because I slim down what I'm carrying day to day. I keep the Canon set up in the home office for anything that I might need it for. It still has a place. Like, I don't want to say that I've abandoned the Canon ecosystem, because I certainly haven't. It's just no longer going to be the first camera that I grab compared
or the
to
second or
these
the
other
third.
ones. Well, it might be the second, because if I decide I need to shoot 8K, it is one of the only two cameras I have that can shoot 8K. And so it's very much a use the appropriate tool for the appropriate job kind of thing. But with the jiu-jitsu stuff, there are times when the video forward feature set of the S1 Mark II makes more sense, and there are times when I really want the photo forward feature set of the S1R Mark II. And so it made more sense to me to say, okay, if I feel like I can use both for specific purposes, I should just have both accessible. So,
and then your tertiary camera is the S5.
The S5 Mark II X.
Okay. See, I didn't know. This takes me back to chemistry and seeing, like, okay, here's some nomenclature, and you told me the S1 Mark II, and then so I look at the S1R Mark II, I get that, and then I looked at this and I was like, oh no, how do I say this? And so that it actually reminded me of, like, having to figure out how to say certain things in chemistry,
and that one's an oddball because they had an S5. They released the S5 Mark II, and then they did a very video-focused update for that specific camera, which became the S5 Mark II X.
Yeah. It reminds me of, it's like, speaking of the chemistry, in the United States, we use a naming convention where the chemical name of Tylenol would be acetaminophen, and the convention used in Europe that you would use in the UK. And I think of the UK because of a song on Razor Blade Suitcase by Bush, where he mentions paracetamol, and paracetamol is the exact same thing as acetaminophen, just a different naming convention.
Interesting. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. I don't know why I looked it up, but I don't even think I looked it up. I think it's just something I came across. Anyway, so cool, cool camera.
And the benefit too, for me, the S1R Mark II and the S1 Mark II are the exact same physical body.
Oh, okay.
And so it's just nice. I love the feel of that camera, that body, and it's the first one since the R. I mentioned this even when we talked about the S1R Mark II, but Canon's R, mirrorless, the very first one, it felt really good in hand, and so having two of these that feel really good in hand is just kind of a joy to use.
Nice. I'm glad to hear that. That's good. But that leads, that kind of, I'm going to take this and segue into one of the things that I noticed recently was that you're verified on Instagram
and Facebook.
I figured as much. I just am not there as much. So
yeah, I'm not either. And
what
it's
about
not.
Threads?
I don't actually have no idea if it translates. So I did do the business decision of the Meta verified account. Only because and we'll get to the other bullet point as well, but as I do another project and am expanding some things, it made more sense to me to use it for that kind of notice and trust factor.
Yeah.
I still have a lot of problems paying for a verified check, but
well, I can't imagine it I can't imagine it's not the same hellscape on Twitter.
I'm sure it's not. And it's not like it's a bad thing. Like I do appreciate I'm talking about the whole aspect of, or the idea of the
Oh no, the idea is a great idea. It's a good idea, provided it does what it's supposed to do. But yeah.
Right. So yeah, I did that actually 2 or 3 days ago. It's very recent.
So I was observant, and I noticed it as soon as it happened because I noticed it about that time ago. I was going to say I was like, I saw it and I was like, I'm not going to call it what everyone else calls it because that's not what it actually is. Especially, I think it was very popular with Twitter before Musk finagled his way into that company and into owning that company. And God, what a fucking load of bullshit that was. But everyone called it the blue check mark, and it's technically not a blue check mark. It's a white check mark with a blue starburst of sorts around it. So I refuse to call it the blue check mark, even though other folks do. But I know what they're talking about, so I don't correct them. But yeah, didn't they have isn't there like a gold something or another in Twitter at some point?
To be honest, as soon as I left the platform almost as soon as it started going downhill, and I haven't looked at anything since. The biggest thing that I remember was just that the initial wave of the updated paid for verification program basically allowed anybody to just buy it without any verification of any type.
So it defeated the purpose.
Yeah, it was a mess. And I don't even know if it ever got really cleaned up after that.
I don't expect so. I don't know much about what's going on over there, but it's a dumpster fire. I did.
There was some reason I actually logged in again at some point in the past few months, and I can't remember what it was. I'm sure it was me just trying to copy and paste something or get to something for posterity's sake, but I can't remember now what it was.
It was never something that I tried multiple times to get into it, but it was never something I just never found any, I don't even say value. I just didn't get it. It's like when Tom Hanks' character is sitting in the room with all the executives, and they're showing this toy idea of a building that turns into a robot, or a robot that turns into a building, and he's just sitting there. It's like, I don't get it. It's like, why isn't it like some sort of insect or something cool like that? And this is how I was with Twitter. It's like I didn't get it. It wasn't for me. Like, I know a lot of people really enjoyed it, and there was a lot of stuff going on there, but I didn't get it. I didn't get Tumblr. I tried. So I also didn't get MySpace. MySpace was like, for me, the problem with MySpace was it was just so messy. There was like no, it was like, things, there's no, it's not like there was like, hey, I don't want to see people's, expression, but it was just like all over the place. There was no sort of, I don't even say organization, but just everything was in disarray, and not in a, well, I was going to say not in a cute, eccentric way like Dr. Seuss, but I can't really say that anymore because I went to Universal Studios once, and I went to the Dr. Seuss area, and I was like, it was uncomfortable. And so, whereas in the books, it's like really fun. I like the way it looks in the books, but in real life, it was uncomfortable. But that also might be because it wasn't real, in the sense that here we're taking like concrete and painting it pink, like this pink color, and trying to give you a Dr. Seuss feel. And we're trying to manufacture a Dr. Seuss feel, and it was just not real enough. So it could have been that more so than actually being Dr. Seuss. Point being is, something I was talking about didn't feel right, and now I can't even remember what it was.
Well, it was the figuring out the social media stuff, or certain social media sites, and how
MySpace.
Because like part of the appeal from MySpace was that chaos. If you embraced chaos, then it was great. I remember spending a lot more time there than I ever did. I tried Tumblr. I never really spent time there after the first, day of looking at it. Twitter, I did spend a lot of time on because it fit my attention span, especially early on, where you were forced to be concise. And then as people started being a little cleverer with conversations and threads, and then the eventual adoption of that stuff as well through the apps and everything else, it became worse and worse and worse, even before tampering by Space Karen. Um, just trying to think of a way to put it that was fun. And I think that's part of why I just don't care for threads.
Yeah, I don't get it.
It's not bad, but it's not.
It's not good.
Yeah. Really, the only social media that I'm consistently using at this point would be Instagram, and I don't know that I would count YouTube as social media, but it's got its kind of semi-categorization there, so I would count it as the other one that I'm on. But YouTube is very much a different thing, I think, for me.
It's a media platform with a social media aspect.
That's a good way to put it.
It's not because it's not primarily social media. Whereas Instagram is like, here's a video, but it's primarily, it's pictures and videos, and ads. It's a lot of ads,
and the ads have gotten worse and worse and worse.
I don't know what's going on.
And I don't necessarily mean worse about like the quality of the ads. I mean, the ad quality is down.
The number of ads?
Yeah, the number of ads just seems to be higher and higher and less refined. It reminds me more of the way Google would do it back in the day, where if you clicked on one, then all you were going to get for a little bit were variations of the same ad, like, oh, here's this apparel brand. Well, now we're going to give you 12 others.
Or God forbid you liked a cat video, and now all you see are things about cats that you will never ever turn over. You'll never be a turnover.
Yeah, it used to be great. I don't know what all they've changed, but it's not great anymore.
Make Instagram great again.
But it does kind of go hand in hand with, I'm going to jump to my other bullet point just because it's also short. But talking about getting a lot of things done over the past couple of weeks, and part of the decision of being verified, I officially will launch Renegade Noble on YouTube this Friday, the 25th at 11 a.m.
Nice.
Yeah, the teaser's been up for a while, and I had to shift. I know at one point I had 2024 slated as the launch, and I think everywhere that I had that, I successfully changed it to 2025. There might still be some wording out there somewhere saying that it's 2024, but either way, it's finally happening.
Once Friday rolls around, it won't matter.
Exactly.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I guess it'll be something we'll talk about next time, because I'll watch it. I'll watch what you have and see what goes out.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problems answering questions now as well, but I figure it probably makes more sense just to tease it and maybe actually talk about the content next week. I ended up focusing on the right thing, I think, and you'll understand what I mean once it actually plays.
One of the things I thought about was about social media and YouTube specifically, and that is, the nice thing about Instagram is if there's an ad, you just keep going. And but YouTube, they've created a different kind of hellscape by having whoever thought about 2 unskippable YouTube ads. They need to go to get some sort of something happen to them.
Yeah, I really don't like the way a lot of them have been, because it's not only are they unskippable, but they're getting longer and longer segments.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I tried
all it
watching.
Really does is make me quit watching some content.
Yeah, that's what happens. 100% what happens. So, this past week we've had our annual. Well, no, let me go. I got ahead of myself. I came across a post about United Healthcare is getting sued by shareholders over the reaction to the CEO's killing.
I saw that too, and yeah.
I saw that and I was like, "Is this for real?" So I had to go verify it, and I did. NBC News was reporting it, and I was just like, "Wow!" I can't. This is gonna have to end This is getting to be too much. And I think it's going to happen.
I have no doubt that something's going to have to break finally.
I think it's much like the Ocean Gate submarine. We're hearing the cracks. The cracks of the carbon fiber are happening. Everything's okay, guys. Everything's okay. Did you happen to watch there was a documentary about it on Netflix?
No, I have not.
I would say if you're just really into it, watch it. But if you're going into this documentary thinking maybe we'll find out how scared they were right before it happened, because when it imploded, I'm fairly confident they didn't feel anything, which is, I guess, good. That's, you don't want people to suffer, but it's also like none of us felt bad about that, just because of the optics, but there was no discussion of like how long they would have known this was going to happen, or in the submarine, in the submersible, like what was happening. There was no discussion of that. It was just everything that led up to it, and much like John Oliver talking about Boeing on Last Week Tonight, there were red flags everywhere. There were engineers trying to say, no, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. The whole, leading, for years, this is a problem. And they didn't listen. And so I feel like that's what's happening to that's what's going to happen. There's cracking, and the people that are in charge right now are going to get feel the implosion soon.
It's amazing how frequently that general plot shows up in business, where you've got people who definitely understand product or service or whatever. It doesn't really matter what you're talking about, but how they attempt to catch the momentum going forward before it hits that just really bad point, and trying to warn or influence changes in decision making, whatever, but and being ignored. Like, just that general plot arc recurs so often in just every company.
I mean, and that's 100% what's happening with global warming as a result of climate change.
Yeah.
So I can't remember who wrote this paper, but he said it's too late. And by too late, he meant what's going to happen is going to happen, and we're going to have to react to it. Not it's too late, let's give up, but it's like it's too late, things are going to happen, and we're going to have to go at it the hard way. And I was like, yeah. And for all the like, I think space exploration is interesting and good. There's some things that I think we have prioritized it incorrectly, but the whole idea of like let's go to Mars, it's like that's pretty dumb. Like, or let me rephrase. Let's colonize Mars is a pretty dumb thing, because you know what? The Earth is easier. It's more habitable. If World War III happened and there was like a nuclear fallout everywhere, guess what? The Earth is more habitable than Mars. After the asteroid hit the Earth and that led to the extinction of the dinosaurs, guess what? The Earth was more habitable than Mars. So the idea of making Mars habitable with our current level in civilization, or current class of civilization, we're not there yet. We're not near that.
An interesting take. I could agree with it. The only counter argument that I would have would be focused on not what is more habitable, but the fact that a species that exists in more than one location is more likely to survive long term than a species that only exists at one.
No, that's a good point, but it's one of those things. It's like I think somebody's getting ahead of themselves, and
I do agree with that for sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I that's why It's one of those things where the technology is simply not there, and it's not going to be there in our lifetime or maybe the next generation's lifetime. I could be wrong because it's hard to gauge how things are going to go.
But it's absolutely fair to say that the technology to support that endeavor does not currently exist and will not in the short term.
Yes, and what does exist is taking care of what we have here. And, how great would it be is if we could take care of what we have here and, go over to Mars, which is a fixer-upper, and take care of that too. It's if you've got enough money for two places, you don't trash one place and then go to the other place. You take care of the first place, and then you make the other place good too. I don't know. I've never heard of anyone having a beach house that and then they go home and they have their home they completely trash it with the expectation like, oh, we'll go live at the beach house when our current home is trashed. Anyway, I totally missed out on my segue talking about the United Healthcare being sued because we've had I missed on our segue to talk about how we've had our annual CEO sacrifice, quote unquote.
Which one?
Andy Byron at Astronomer.
Oh, yeah.
Like this year was Andy Byron at Astronomer. Last year it was Brian Thompson from United Healthcare. The year before it was Stockton Rush at Ocean Gate. So, and then I in the grand scheme of things, I can agree. But the two previous years it was death, not just removal, and so my mind didn't immediately go there. Right. That's why, yeah. So, I guess, for all things considered, Byron could be considered quite lucky, but we're only halfway through the year.
There's still time to have another one.
There is. But what does that say? What does that say about people? Because like everybody is delighting in him getting caught. Everyone's delighting in his life being ruined.
Yeah, I don't get that.
Well, we all delighted when maybe we don't necessarily didn't delight in Brian Thompson's death, but we certainly were excited about Luigi Mangione and we have made him into a hero. So I guess where I go with this is it's not so much all the people reacting this way. It's this. That's how shitty we know people in power are.
Yeah, I would go with that. Because I was thinking about, for example, if we take this scenario, you can certainly see a number of people reacting positively because anybody who cheats being discovered and exposed is a positive or a net positive in some fashion. But it's not that. Like that's not the
right. Because there are plenty of cheaters out there, and we don't delight in their misfortune or in getting caught.
Yeah, it's very
that
much
the CEO got caught.
Yeah, it's the exposure, or it's the fact that someone finally didn't beat accountability for something.
Right.
Because like there would be the equivalent of mass euphoria among many if Trump happened to not beat out accountability for any of his stuff. Now, granted, there would probably be a certain amount of clamoring and saying set up and everything else from the staunchest of supporters, but there would be a far greater interest in that than, say, Bernie Sanders. Like there's a difference at the highest levels of an organization. Like the president's acts and atrocities, one way or the other, are going to garner more of a following than maybe not all, but most representatives or senators. Senators, maybe not. Those tend to be better known. But either way, like you follow the train of thought. And so, CEO having a problem is certainly going to be more delightful to a larger audience than, say, a senior director.
Right. It's because they go about, and we know how often CEOs have just destroyed things. I mean 2008, all the bankers that destroyed our economy got a bailout and then got rich off of it, whether they made smart decisions or just got fucking golden parachutes. And so now it's like you see a CEO, misfortune happen to a CEO, we delight in that because, they have created a bitterness in the regular folks. So I think we're in a place where things are beginning to boil. I think, I don't know how to segue here because I am going to go out of order because, you talked about various political figures and Trump specifically. And I really feel like, I don't know how much of it is like feelings of like, ooh, like I feel like it's going to happen, or if it's just hopeful thinking. But I don't think he's going to get away with the Epstein files not being released. There's just too many people that want to see that list. There's too many people that want to know what's on there because I think we can all say that pretty confidently that there's something incriminating in that documentation about Trump, and something to the effect that it could end his presidency. Not because he would be gracious enough to resign like Nixon, but because it will be too damning to not hold him accountable.
There's certainly hope.
Yeah, there's hope, but I feel like there might be more than hope.
Well, this has been a tricky one for me to kind of wrap my head around as well, because it's the kind of thing that feels like it could be the right leverage for forcing his hand, for lack of better phrasing, if people actually try. And that's the part that has me reserved and somewhat concerned, because I saw another article that kind of goes in with this theme that was talking about how the House went ahead and disbanded or recessed
yes,
a day early because of some confrontation over trying to force legislation and all that would expose the more of the documentation, at least, if not all of it. And so, seeing things like that, there's more momentum here than there has been with anything else against Trump, but I still don't know that there's enough organization to it for it to stay the course. I don't think that it would take much either. I think it would just be some formalization of I keep wanting to say coalition, but not even a coalition of like representatives and senators, more just a showing that is non-politically biased. Bipartisan is, of course, how we normally would say it for law purposes anyway. But something that was more cohesive across more representatives in general, and I'm using representatives loosely to include the Senate in that statement, that gave more hope to it having staying power. And we'll see. Like we're too early in this to make a judgment call either. But I think that's why it's difficult for me to get my hopes up yet. But I do see it as the potential thing that finally shows people who he really is. I think if you're objective and have actually paid attention to wording and actions and the reality of everything, and not the spewed rhetoric of propagandists, for lack of any better phrasing, then you already know who he is, and this comes as no revelation. And it's very clear that the only reason they're not being released like they were claimed to be, that would happen, is because there's something incriminating. Now, how incriminating still remains to be seen. But there's no way you wouldn't constantly try to deflect and take the pressure off and bury the story in any way, shape, fashion, or form that you possibly can if you didn't scare you enough to do so. And I mean, we've seen that in troves based on his responses and actions. I mean, why else would the president be trying to divert attention to getting like the Washington, whatever they call themselves now, to go back to the Redskins? Like of all things, like things like that are so asininely clear deflection tactics that it's got to unravel. The real question is just whether at a higher level from elected representatives, if that organization comes together.
Yeah. It's one of the things that feels different about this. This is one of the first times where I've seen some of his staunch supporters turning. They're like, they smell the stink of, he campaigned on releasing the Epstein files, and now that he can, he's not.
Yeah, and I think it was even mentioned last time we recorded. Like, once you have someone else that I despise, but Marjorie Taylor Greene, turning on you of all people, something's off. Now, whether it's just because she's trying to do something locally with her base, or it's actually a legitimate turning, doesn't really matter. It's publicly a show of fraying support, and that's a fairly significant thing.
It is, and I was going to say a bit of a tangent there. She also introduced some legislation about reducing aid to Israel by $500 million because it wasn't America first. I mean, that woman went so far right that she ended up on the left, and the only people that voted with her were like far left representatives in the House. So I was amused by that. I was just like, you know what? I never thought I would say this, but like I support that bill. I support what she's doing there, because I don't care that what she's done in the past. When you present something that is good that I agree with, I'm going to say I support that. I don't care. I don't support anything else that she's done in the past, and I think she's overall been a terrible person. But you know what? It reminds me of that phrase that blind squirrels find nuts from time to time, or the broken clock is correct twice a day. Whatever, you pick your metaphor.
I would agree.
Yeah. So, maybe this is how it all unravels, and you know what? There are going to be casualties of people that I at some point admired, but so be it. Like, I keep seeing things where people are saying, well, what if Clinton's on that list, on the Epstein list? I was like, well, I don't think any of us will be surprised if he is on that list. And guess what? He needs to be held accountable for what he did. I don't care that he's a Democrat. I don't care that he's liberal. You did something wrong. You know what? They held out, Al Franken resigned his position as senator. I liked him as a senator, but he had to resign his position as a senator because he did something that he shouldn't have done, and his constituents demanded it of him. You know what? If Bernie Sanders was on that list, he's someone that I highly respect. Guess what? Bernie Sanders needs to be held accountable if he did something like that. I don't care.
And, there's a point where
I'm not in a cult.
There's a point where any assault or predatory action should be looked at and the person held accountable regardless of any other fact. There are certain. It's no different than many other crimes. I wouldn't say all other crimes. We could have a tangent on that one. But anything that's considered assault or predatory is a very clear and obvious crime. And it just shouldn't be acceptable, not in any society, much less a self-proclaimed civilized society.
Every once in a while, I come across a social media account that makes me feel uncomfortable, and this particular type of account that I'm talking about is an account where women are talking about the things that are happening to women, and it makes me feel uncomfortable because I don't recognize the things that women go through, and I want to be an ally, and I try my hardest to be an ally. But every time I come across one of these accounts, I follow it and I try to watch as much of it as I can. But then there gets to be a point where it makes me really uncomfortable and I have to stop watching. But I do it because I need to recognize the blind spots that I have. I need to recognize where I don't know that the male gaze exists. And I came across one last week, and it was difficult to watch because I was like, oh, this is about a person that I used to really like, David Letterman. And I just saw some clips of David Letterman treating the guests on his show with disrespect because they were women. And now I was just like, David, I feel like David Letterman might not be that different from Bill Cosby. And, it wasn't something that I expected. But I was just like, I'm glad that somebody out there is showing this because I need to see this, and I need to make sure that my sons understand this and make sure that they understand what their blind spots are, and make sure that, an Epstein list is not necessary because we listen to women, because the list would not be necessary if we just listened to women.
I have a response, but I wanted to make sure I paused because I don't know.
We have a number of ways you can contact.
This is the type of thing that is fascinating from the psychology and sociology side of things as well. And so there's not an argument there. There's an adjacent conversation that is worth keeping in mind as well.
Right,
which is why it's difficult because it's.
Is it the conversation about humans crying wolf?
No,
okay. Because I was going to say that all humans do that. That's not specific to men or women.
Yeah, no, it's keeping in mind the shifts in awareness that happen within societies and cultures, because there are certain things that every generation, every group of people, every individual person is going to have things that they are oblivious to individually and cumulatively. It happens and it changes, and awareness changes, and societies get better at informing and educating, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's why if you go back to however long back you want to go, let's just pick prior to women having the right to vote, the women's suffrage movement, just in recent history. So if you just go back to before that, and the attitudes and approaches and the way interactions occurred were different, and we're not necessarily not trying to make it sound like they should be excused either. Like that's a separate thing that you can look at and wrap around. But culturally, within society, there were certain expected norms and behaviors. Whether they were right or wrong is outside the scope of this particular piece. But they were proliferated by men and women, rightfully and wrongfully, in all different social circles. And so that happens. That's a part of behavior. It's a part of societal culture. It's how things are, and then movements occur to make them better or drive them forward or in a different direction, kind of thing. And so it's a fascinating thing in general to recognize how those things have progressed and gotten better and are more, we'll just say more egalitarian. We're not even close to that being a true thing, but certainly more than they were. But keeping in mind that as a result of those transitions and the awareness and education of groups of people expanding over time, it's easy to get lost in behavior that's not necessarily right, but if the person was never educated or called out or anything else at the time to understand it or know about it, holding them to the standard that would occur later that did bring that education and awareness and being able to recognize it is also a fallacy. Not saying that that's the example you gave either, but it's keeping that in mind when examining the other that's important for contextual awareness. Does that make sense? It's really difficult to try to describe without a lot of other ancillary things, I think.
No, I follow that. It does make sense. So,
and I say it because even during the time of Cosby's allegations, it was clear it was wrong. And so I would say with Letterman, I'm sure it was clear it was wrong. But a lot of times we look at these examples and then fail to recognize whether in their sphere of existence there ever would have been any type of awareness or education or talking back, or if it was always subservience because of disproportionate power, which is also a problem. But it's, there are those aspects of it.
Well, I think that when it was happening in the early 90s, I think when this was, when you saw something like this happen, it was just like, maybe, I'm sure there were plenty of women that would have been like, the reaction that they would have 30 years ago versus today is exactly the same, because they've had different experiences, and their experiences have informed them. I mean, there's a video of Lucille Ball talking in the 70s, like some host of some show was talking to a woman, and he's like, and you hear Lucille Ball say, "Don't touch her. Don't touch her. Don't touch her." So 100% understand that the experience hasn't changed for women. The experience has changed for men in that we have become more aware of the plight of women.
Yeah,
so
I would definitely agree with that. The key is that whole, we've become aware because of the efforts of others to point it out.
Yes. So I keep looking for people to point it out so that I can, because I know that I have blind spots, and it's as a product of the construct that I grow in. I know that I have blind spots, and so I want those exposed. I want my vision to be better.
Yeah. And the short way to then turn around and actually reinforce the thought I was having difficulty nailing down would be, on the flip side of it, you wouldn't take an action of yours from 20 years ago and judge you according to your knowledge today either. Now, it might still be a wrong action, but you're intentionally showing improvement as well.
Right. I might need to be held accountable. Maybe I need to be held accountable for my action 20 years ago, regardless of what I know today. But now it'd be like, I know things differently today. I know things differently than I did 5 years ago. So it's just like, yeah.
And it's a really tricky balancing act.
Yeah.
Well, I say it that way. It's not tricky for criminal act. There's a point where even if you were uncertain about other things, there are things that are criminal and you should be held accountable for. That's a different section of what we're talking about.
Yes, I think it's, to give an example, 30 years ago, had I seen that clip of David Letterman, I would have been like, okay, maybe she, maybe we're all cool. Maybe this is all cool between the two of them. Seeing that clip today, she is definitely not cool with that. And how did I not see that 30 years ago? I think that maybe might be a way to, I didn't do anything wrong. I was just not sensitized.
Yeah, that's a good way to illustrate it. Because I know I was just having this conversation yesterday. Actually, there was someone who hasn't been training long, but I've seen her fairly consistently since she started. And we were having a conversation because they're earlier than normal. And her question was, how long have I been training? What made me want to decide to train? Just general chit chat, but also just curiosity. And I told her, I realize, I explained, or we had the conversation, but then at the end I said, I realize I'm making an assumption, actually, every time I see any woman come in for training and assume that it's a fairly self-defense, aspect. And it's not really fair. I shouldn't make that assumption every time. So, I'm going to extend the same courtesy and ask, what made you decide to train? And so, yeah, I think every woman's going to agree that there is some level of self-defense that comes into play that makes any of them want to come learn. But she said in her case, it was also just an enjoyment of a lot of rough physical activities, and this being another one that she just wanted to try. And so it's illustrative of the same kind of thing. Like, I would not have even thought anything to ask beyond or ask about someone's intention to train, because historically any female that trained martial arts pretty much always was looking for the self-defense aspect first and foremost. And it's only been in relatively, well, I can't say that with certainty because I can't speak for the wide swaths of martial arts in place. It's only been my experience talking with other women who train in relatively recent years that there's more of I just enjoy the art, or I enjoy, the activity or whatever else might be. It's not purely driven by self-defense.
Yeah. It made me think of if you see a man in scrubs and you see a woman in scrubs, the construct that we have developed in has led us to believe that the man is a doctor and the woman is a nurse, and that's simply not the case. You never know.
Yeah, it's I wonder what the actual prevalence of the population is now, because it feels like it's still maybe 60-70% female nurses to male nurses. It might be higher than that still, but it definitely feels like it's far more common to see male nurses on a regular basis than it used to be, which is a good thing for sure. But I do wonder what that population looks like at this point compared to, say, 10 years ago.
I'm sure. I would expect that it's the percentage of male nurses is growing, and not because, well, I think the whole landscape has changed. That it's gone from the idea that doctors make a lot of money to a place of doctors are service providers.
Yeah, my understanding in general is that if you want to make money in a medical profession, you specialize in like radiology or anesthesia or something else that would be more in the domain of a specialist for all intents and purposes, and not like
plastic surgery,
specialist surgeon. Yeah.
There's no real good segue here now, but I do want to say, wow, I knew last night's episodes of The Daily Show and The Late Show were not going to disappoint, and they didn't.
Yeah, I still need to watch both.
They were delightful, both of them, in their own. How you've come to know Stephen Colbert responded just the way you would want Stephen Colbert to respond. It was delightful, and how you would expect Jon Stewart to respond to the canceling of the Late Show. Absolutely delightful, and I think the next 10 months of the Late Show is going to be interesting.
I definitely hope so. Really do. My hope, actually, let's back up slightly just to, in case somebody is listening and doesn't know the timing of things. CBS announced they were going to end the Late Show with Colbert and not replace him or anything, just cancel the show.
The whole show is canceled.
Yep. And claiming that it was purely a financial decision. Timing of things, there's no way it's purely a financial decision.
And they've even come out to say that we know the optics are bad, but we're still it's purely financial, and it's like I don't think I want to. I'm not going to put that hook, line, and sinker and rod and reel in my mouth.
Yeah, there's the only way it's purely financial is if there's a financial component tied to the administration approving the merger between Paramount and Skydance or whatever it is.
It's Skydance, yeah. And I mean, Jon Stewart said it really well. I think it was Jon Stewart that said, yeah, it was. He said that companies are, man, go and watch it. It's really good. But they're shucks, I forgot it. I had it, but I forgot it.
But where I was going, or what I was going to say, was that I hope that this starts a revival of sorts of media actually standing up for things, whether it's, comedic hosts of shows, whether it's CNN standing their ground, like the recent article where they were threatened about commenting on whatever drawing or letter or whatever it was that Trump had sent Epstein, and launched some outrage from the administration over and threatened to sue and all that kind of stuff. Like the more this takes or forces a public reaction, the better. But the more this forces a very public outcrying of things, whether it's in some level humorous or on some level humorous, or whether it's purely reporting and good reporting and journalism that takes the front stage, doesn't matter. I think at this point we've got to have media in general stand up to the administration, or it's just going to really be destroyed.
Yeah. And I don't think, like I said, I think this is all of these, there's this idea that we can be controlled, and there are just too many people that are overplaying their hand. And I think that I think this is another thing that is gonna, they think, canceling the show, that's going to keep us safe. And I think it's going to backfire on them. I think it's going to backfire on Trump. And I think that there's a reckoning to be had.
It's going to be interesting whether it backfires on Paramount in general as well. Because you've just, not even devil's advocate, but just thinking about the current media landscape and the difficulty of traditional television compared to the accessibility of other platforms. I have no doubt Colbert will be fine and will take his audience somewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's the question, because wherever it goes, I mean, that has the potential to be a bigger deal for him than might even be realized at this point, because it could provide more creative freedom and more following, especially if it's not gated by traditional broadcast rights and other things. I mean, it's kind of tough to say it's gated now with being released on YouTube, but at the same time, it is. There are some who wouldn't go catch it because of ads, maybe, or because of just access. Who knows? You can make many arguments, but the point is that Paramount might see its audience dwindle beyond a recoverable may be the wrong word, but beyond an easily recoverable margin, to a point that it might make the merger less profitable for Skydance.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting take. I hadn't thought about that.
My understanding is that that time slot and the Colbert Show was one of the stalwarts of drawing in viewers and one of the most fiscally responsible shows.
They keep saying that they were losing, like it had a budget of $100 million, but it was only making $60 million. So I don't know. I mean, I don't understand. What I do understand is that he said something that the president didn't like, and companies are ready to roll over. Well, it was specifically about
the settlement that
60,
Paramount
the 60,
had.
yeah, the settlement that Paramount had based on the reporting that 60 Minutes did, and so forth. And it was just, yeah, if it's about money, that's just pretty damn unlucky for Paramount.
Yeah,
it's not about the money. I mean, it's probably some of. It's not about the money. Because they just played how much did what was their settlement? It was a lot.
$16 million.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was a financial component to the decision. It's just it might have been 1 or 2% of the decision.
Yeah, the financial component might be like, oh, we're gonna have to pay this every time he doesn't like something that Colbert says. And I was like, no, don't pay him. Don't roll over to the bully. He's just a bully. Punch him back in the nose.
That's the thing that I don't get with a lot of the companies who have chosen that path. Have we never?
When it's the little people, they do the math and see which is going to be more expensive, a class action lawsuit or a recall. That's what they do. Okay, recall is more expensive. We'll wait for the class action lawsuit. Class action lawsuit more expensive. We'll do the recall. But somehow it's one of their own in the sense that it's like, oh, somebody else in the 1% is upset at us. We just got to roll over. It's the president of the United States. We couldn't possibly stand up against him. I do like that the Wall Street Journal they published the article about Trump being some of the interactions he had with Epstein, and then Trump says, "Hey, I'm going to sue the Wall Street Journal," and then the Wall Street Journal wrote another article and published it about how Trump is going to sue them.
Yeah, I did like that as well.
You know what? Guess what? Paramount's move was, hey, who else can we get on the air and start talking bad about Trump? Who else? Well, no, we don't need people to talk bad about Trump. We just need people to tell the truth about Trump. That's all we need. Is it bad? Yeah. Let's get everyone on The View to tell what they really, interview people that, have had firsthand experiences with Trump. Why don't we get them all to interview people who are on the Epstein list as victims? That might not be a good idea, but the point is, double down on your message. If he's doing the wrong thing, let your news crews do what the news crews do. Let them be investigative journalists. We have a number of different ways set up for you to get in touch with us to provide feedback, ask questions, or just comment in about something we've discussed.
You can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at untitled_hosts, or shoot an email over to untitled.hosts@gmail.com.
Or get in touch directly with Jesse at jthart.com, or get in touch with me, John, via telepathy.
If you would like to support our work or are interested in listening to our new after-show feed, head over to patreon.com/theUntitledPodcast and take a look at the options we have set up.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed the show.
And we hope to connect with more of you as we continue this journey.
That's a wrap.